Hello, welcome to Chapter 6 of the Sprinter Van Build series. Today we are going to be covering the sealing, preparation, and rough wiring. Let's get started. In the van, when I originally got it, this was electrical raceway conduit that was in the van that we had to take out because it just took up too much space. In the front of the van, you'll see that a lot of the wiring was coming along. This is the driver's side or the left side of the van if we're in the van. But there was a lot of wiring coming through the headliner, behind the headliner area. And again, we'll get into all this too, but here we even have to make a wooden frame that's going to frame this out going from one area to the next. During the van ceiling prep, these boards here I put in because when I laid out my bathroom, I needed a way to fasten the walls to the ceiling. So my van shower walls are only connected at the ceiling and at the floor base, not at the wall. So I sort of wanted it like an airplane where it was in the air. You still had a movement as the van moved, the walls could move and shifted. So, but this board here is really to support that wall. And as you can see here, we ran a lot of electrical. I overwired my van, because I just wanted to have the ability later on, if I wanted to put something else in there, you can't run these wires. So as you even see in the roof, in the rib area, we were running these through here. And then I was just taking zip ties and then fastening them to any potential hole that was there. But we'll go into more detail as we go further. So when I did the 2x4 van support, all I did was take angle brackets, and these I bolted all the way through to the other side and then just took self-tapping screws and screwed those in. In my van, I made my shower frame out of 80/20 aluminum. And behind this point right here, when you look at the picture, you'll see this is the bracket that's behind there. And this bracket here is actually screwed directly into the 2x4 above this, above my ceiling material. And this bracket here on the left-hand side where my mouse is over here, and then that also screws up. So this is my supporting areas, and this is why I needed to put that 2x4 structure in there. So again, you see here the bolt went all the way through. My shower was 36 inches wide, so I needed enough 2x4 here to be able to cover that whole area. So that's why this is probably close to a 4.5 foot run. Here in the van, you'll see I marked the ceiling where I wanted to put lights. This way, it just makes it a lot easier for me to run the wires, cut the wires, hold them there, and wait for the next step. The other thing that I did is I moved myself out of the way there. Here, I also labeled the wires where I needed to know what section they were going to be. I ran 3 different switches to the van: the kitchen area, the bathroom area, and the bed area. So I also had to mark where my switches were at. The thing that I needed to do with the ceiling preparation was to make sure that I had a way to fasten my cabinets to the ceiling and to the wall. And you'll see in future videos, my cabinets are like an L-shaped. So there's only 2 support points, ceiling and wall. And then as the van flexes, the cabinet will flex as well. But what I did is I used these toggle bolts that I have the link on the Amazon website. But these actually will go into the ceiling. When you stretch this out, they go up into the hole. You pull these 2 plastic pieces down and make them even, and then you're set to receive a bolt there. And what I did here is I used 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch 20 threads per inch steel studs, so that way I could screw them into there, and then I have a nut on the other side, and we'll get into all that later, but that's really what the preparation was. The other thing that I needed to do is I'm going to put furring strips, or these 3/4 inch pine boards, that I will be able to screw my sealing material into, and I marked here where this toggle bolt is going to go through, because we have to drill a hole to be able to accept the toggle bolt. So here you'll see my marks there. And then now that we've had the toggle bolt go through, so when we have this board here, we take the toggle bolt, we flip it through, then we'll end up screwing this board into the support structure of the van with self-tapping metal screws. And you can see here, these are the threaded studs that I used for attaching my upper cabinet structure, and this is the upper cabinet structure of the 8020. So these metal studs will screw into the toggle bolt, and you'll see I have these L brackets on my upper cabinet frames, and then I have another nut that will then screw this into the ceiling, and that's how my upper cabinet is supported. I wish I had more photos, but I don't. But this piece of wood here is the trim piece that I made to separate the headliner. So this is just 3/4 inch plywood, and then I put a plastic trim piece around it. And then I just painted it a gray paint that was similar to the color of the inside of the van. The other thing I did here was I drilled a hole, so I was able to bring the wiring from the front of the van back through. So we had an easy way to do this. The other thing here is you'll see all of these furring strips. All these furring strips are what we're going to be using to attach the sealing material to this, and we'll screw this up into there. The other thing you'll see here around the fan is I made this flush with here with this, my frame. So really we're adding another 3/4 inches around it, and I'll put another one across this area as well. But all this is screwed, and you'll also see in here, I'm doing the insulation, because you got to do all this at one time, but I will get into a separate chapter strictly on insulation on how we do that. Here you're going to see where I start putting my sealing material in, and we're going to get that into another image. But you'll see the most important thing here is you're going to see that I have my toggle bolts for my upper cabinets on my right side and my left side of the van. The other thing, just since we're at this photo, you'll see I use Thinsulate, which is 3M insulating material. And then I use Reflectix as my vapor barrier. And then I use aluminum tape to seam up all this stuff. But like I said, we'll get into that in later videos. This is just a close-up shot of, once my wood is in place, there's this little plastic flange that moves on this toggle bolt. And once I have this in place and this is screwed up, you push that all the way in, and then these snap off, and then it's actually flush with that. So as I put in my ceiling panels, these, I know exactly where I'll need to drill the hole to have my toggle bolt or my threaded rod coming through. The other thing that's important to note here is I ran a lot of extra cable in this van. I ran Cat 6. I added all this extra wiring for future purposes, and I even ran additional wiring in the event that I wanted to put in an air conditioner at a later time. Another important point is these are rubber grommets that when I'm running my wire through the side of the van, not the outside, but through the internal panel, I'm also putting rubber grommets in those areas. When I put my ceiling in, I used a product called Versatex. Versatex is a great product, and I'll put in a link in the website. It's used for, it's a beadboard that's used in a lot of outdoor projects, in even indoor projects, where you want to have a nice waterproof PVC material that's white that could easily be cleaned. And later on, if you ever wanted to paint it, there's a scratch, you can fix the scratches with it, paint it, whatever. So it's a very versatile material. One of the things that I wanted to do when I put in my van is there's this product called Christie's Red Hot White Vinyl Adhesive. And what this does is we go into this, I'm actually gluing each one of these boards together with a bead of this adhesive. And when you put the two together, it actually chemically bonds it and it creates one piece. So if you actually were try to snap this, it would probably break at this point here. This point would not break. I marked with yellow tape where all my furring strips are, so I know where I'm going to put my screws. So the great thing about this product is you put your first piece in, then you screw here, then I put a bead of the caulk going across, then I'll put my next panel in, and then it will bond it together. So when I'm done, this in theory will be a fully bonded ceiling as one piece, but glued and screwed to the ceiling. But I wanted something that wasn't going to be moving, wasn't going to be shifting. And then from here, you'll see later on that I'm just able to put my trim pieces in to finish all this out. And as I mentioned before, I put the Versatex in. This is a vapor barrier material because I just wanted to make sure the moisture wasn't getting up above this area. But you want to make sure that you're using rubber grommets anywhere where these wires could be rubbing against that. In this photo here, you'll see that I'm drilling out the holes for my LED lighting. And that's what it looks like there. And as I start to go through the van, this is from the driver's side cabin. This is the standard headliner. This is the wood piece that I made. So we're looking towards the back of the van. You'll see my toggle bolts are coming through. And then as I'm going through, I am connecting my lights and testing them. And even with these, I don't solder it at this point, but we'll get into that later. But we are hooking these up and making sure everything's working before I close up the ceiling as we go back. As I mentioned before, you'll see the Versatex. I'm then sealing this as we go. And I'm leaving this hang down low because we're going to be putting more material over that. So this is from the back to the front. This is the total, so these are all my lights here. So as I mentioned before, that's one switch. These three are a different switch, and these four here are on another switch. So I just wanted to have the ability to be able to run. I didn't want to be running my lights all the time, but I could. And you'll see even in here, I've run extra wire and just rolled it up. So, and again, as I mentioned, you see all these wires here. This is where all my main switches are at. So that's why I have the majority of my wires to this side. And like I said, these are just extra wires we ran. And these are my solar panel wires. With my ceiling fan, what I did here is we drilled a hole through the frame. These are the rough wires. And here I actually soldered them. And then I actually shrink tubed them with, heated this up so it was I melted the white, all the wiring, and then when it goes through, it's just a nice clean installation. This is another picture of just another recessed light hole. This is a copy of the lights that I used. I got these from Amazon. And then this here is the finished product. And here you'll see that these white trim pieces that come with the fan kit go slide up in here. And then those screw into the wooden frames that we made. And these are all the lights. And you'll see we have all the holes drilled to receive the threaded studs going all the way back. So this is quite a bit of information we covered in this one chapter. If you have any questions, comments, please list them below. And if you're new to the channel, take a look at the other videos that we have. Thank you very much.